I'll also have an incredible lineup of celebrities, industry experts, and fascinating individuals from all walks of life. The Jamie D Show starts June 6th and will be every Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. PST, live on KSHP AM 1400 and 107.1 FM. You can also stream my show live on KSHP.com. Let's make magic, Vegas.
The Radio Shopping Show is heard right here on KSHP North Las Vegas, AM and FM, 829 6HP North Las Vegas, and KSHP.com.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
It's time for the most interactive radio program in Las Vegas today. It's time for Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro. Brian will talk sports, politics, entertainment, and anything that matters to you. Feel free to call Brian at 702-221-7283.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Now, Pushing the Limits, here's Brian Shapiro.
Well, what's up, everybody? Happy Monday, Pushing the Limits time. Thank you so much for joining us, listening on the FM AM dial. Of course, live on YouTube, whether it be TikTok or the Facebook fan page or Twitter or wherever. We're broadcasting all over the place. Thanks so much for joining us. We got a lot to do today. Donald Trump on the hot seat once again. That fourth indictment could be coming as early as today. A boo-boo that local prosecutors did in that area. We'll talk about that. Coming up here in just a little bit. Nice preseason game by the Raiders. I know it doesn't mean much. It's only a preseason game, but it was nice to see some of the younger guys playing well and playing hard. Mr. Scott Goldbranson, also known as Gully from the Silver and Black podcast, will be joining us in hour number 2 to kind of break that down. We do have a big Aces game tomorrow. They are playing, I think, the one team that can compete with them, which is the New York Liberty. So we will get into that. They're actually playing them twice this week at home, so that will be very interesting. And then we have opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to racism. I mean, we have one specific situation where multiple police officers were basically what they were using the term on a mission to terrorize several black people. They've had their days in court now, and they're in a lot of trouble. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then on the flip side of it, a young teenager handcuffed for about 10 minutes. And the reason why he was handcuffed, he was an innocent young black teenager. He's taking trash out. But the reason why he was handcuffed is not because of police brutality. It's not because of racism. It's because he literally identically matched a suspect that they were looking for wearing the same types of clothing. And now the family's trying to sue the police department. This is the opposite of racism. So we're going to talk about both cases a little bit later on in this show. But it is Monday, and that means that the Mush himself is joining us in studio. Well, I don't know how his sports betting did over the weekend, but Chris Wynn is joining us in studio among the 8 other shows that he does throughout the Valley. Christopher Wynn, what's going on?
It's good to join you, Brian. It is a Monday. Of course, coming out of the weekend, we had so much going on. Yeah, introduced as the Mush, Numchuck. That's solid. Right out of the gate. To start your week off, PTL Nation out there. Outstanding. But, yeah, no question about it. Had a lot going on this weekend. Of course, here in Las Vegas, and Brian and myself and Justin and all of you out there who are Las Vegans understand that F1 is coming, right? So it has caused all kinds of wackiness on the roadways.
It's horrible.
Brian Shapiro, as far as, construction. I mean, they're literally putting the roads down around the track. That's going to be obviously a huge part of the race that's coming up here in the fall. So it's very interesting, to say the least, to get around the Las Vegas Strip here in the last couple of months plus, and leading into November. So it was a little interesting this weekend as far as that goes.
Let me tell you something. I don't even want this race to be here. I know it's great for the economy, and I could care less about. It's causing so many headaches. The construction, the traffic, it's terrible, and it's only getting worse and worse. Anyway, I did have a fun weekend, though. I will say this. Friday night, I had a very peaceful Friday night. Had dinner with the fam, but I've always wanted to see Beck. I've never seen him before. I've always been a big fan of his music. I think he's an extremely talented musician, great voice, distinct voice, and plays a lot of instruments too. And so I got a chance to see him in a band called Phoenix, that is a French band that's been around for a very, very long time. I'm sure you've heard of them.
I've heard of them. I'm not a monster fan.
Fall out. That's fine. But anyway, it was a really cool show. It was at Mandalay Bay, and it was like one of the better concerts I've seen in a long time. Really had a good time on Saturday night seeing that. And then yesterday, the Las Vegas Raiders. Nice to see some NFL football again. And even though it was preseason football, it was still a lot of fun. It was a packed crowd. It was a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, the stars weren't out, of course, and that's expected for a preseason game, especially the first game of the year. But we'll talk a little bit more about that and break that down with Gully coming up in hour number 2. But nice performance. Nice performance by the Raiders. The young guys out there playing hard and playing very well, too. Defense was phenomenal. Even though, again, it was against the San Francisco team without any of their starters out there either. It's not like we saw Kerry Kittle out
Cool, though, that you get a lot of Bay Area people here in town, obviously, because you had the 49ers and the Raiders playing. Obviously, the Raiders came from Oakland, so you had a huge contingency from both San Francisco and the Oakland and the Bay Area coming out. So that was kind of cool for the city. For the weekend.
No question. So we'll talk to Gully about that a little bit more in hour number 2. I want to start with this, Chris, because obviously what took place in Maui is such a disaster, and it's so horrible. And I talked about it last week, and there's such wonderful people out there. First time I went to Hawaii in my life was a few years ago, and I had a great time. I was just amazed at the kindness of people there and the culture and close-knit families, and there's just wonderful people out there, and it's just so horrible. It's such a tragedy, and the death toll's around 100 now, but I keep telling people, listen, there's over 1,000 people that are missing that will probably never be found. And the death toll is going to be over 1,000. There's no question about that, and it's devastating. The whole city was wiped out there. So it's terrible. We all agree. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. What I get is, again, people trying to make it political. Some people that are friends of mine on social media that are saying, why is it that Biden has sent all this money to the Ukraine, but he's not helping our own? And there's a few comments I want to make to that. First of all,
it's not true.
I know it's
First
not
of
true.
all, yeah.
I know it's not true. The first thing I'd like to say to that is, first of all, Biden's going to be sending money there. It's a state of emergency, and Biden and his administration are going to be helping the good people of Maui, and he's going to be sending funds.
He already proved federal aid
Right.
back on Friday.
Right.
He already proved it.
Right.
So I don't know what they're talking about when they say that the Biden administration and the federal government is not helping. They absolutely
that's
are.
what I'm saying.
So it's a lie.
That's
very simple.
That's what I'm getting to. It is a lie, and he's going to continue to be helping the good people there in Maui in doing what he can and sending the funds needed to be sent. So that's number one. It is a lie. Number two, to the Republicans out there, and yes, I'm speaking to the far-right, hypocritical, buffoon Republicans out there right now, who say we shouldn't be sending all this money to Ukraine. We need to be taking care of our own. Well, I ask you this very simple question. Why is it then that the people that you vote for with an R next to their name vote against almost every single policy that the Democrats are trying to pass to help people? For example, maternity leave, helping raising a child, government programs like food stamps, welfare. Why do you guys keep allowing the rich to get tax breaks? Why is it that you don't want to help the poor and the middle class? If it's one of those situations where you say we need to take care of our own, then why is it that Republicans in office consistently don't even want to pass bills like health care bills that would help those brave men and women in uniform? So for you Republicans out there that are hypocritical bastards is what I would call you, that want to say we need to take care of our own, why is it that when in California they're actually trying to do something to help the homeless issue and they're trying to shelter these people and getting them into motels and rooms that are vacated, you have a problem with that, and you have a problem with any governmental program that helps the poor and helps, quote, our own people. But now when you have an opportunity where you want to criticize the Biden administration for sending money to Ukraine, why don't we help our own? Why don't you stop voting for buffoons and clowns on the right that don't want to pass bills to help our own? They're such hypocrites, it's unbelievable.
This is a straightforward concept, Brian Shapiro and everyone out there. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We have the opportunity where we can help our own, as in Maui, in this horrific situation. And we can also lend aid to Ukraine when it comes to this conflict that was created by Vladimir Putin and the Russians. All right? This is not something this is not something where, we can do this, but we can't do that. That's not how it is. That is not the way that we operate as a federal government, and any administration, regardless of if you're Republican or Democrat, should not operate that way. So to me, this is, yes, as you correctly point out, this is just Republicans essentially airing their grievances once again with the Biden administration from a political standpoint, because it's for them, it's about politics. It's about complaining about everything that Democrats want to do, even if Democrats actually do have plans or do have solutions or want to propose such solutions. This is another situation in which Republicans not only don't have a solution, but just want to bitch and moan about what Democrats want to do.
And it's so comical because there's videos circulating now about how Republicans wanted a special counsel to be assigned when it comes to Donald Trump. And now they have this guy Weiss, who's special counsel, and they're all bitching about it. I mean, it's like you can't make this stuff up. There's actual videos of Republicans on the record saying they wanted a special counsel, and now you got what you wanted, and they're complaining about it. I mean, you literally cannot make this stuff up. And while all this stuff is going on, Atlanta area prosecutors are looking to indict Donald Trump. It could be as early as today. I guess the grand jury's probably going to. They did make a mistake in these prosecutors as they put up on their website the indictments that have been put down and the criminal charges, and then they took it down because they realized they shouldn't do that before the grand jury puts down the indictment. So they did make a little bit of a boo-boo and a mistake there, but the grand jury is going to be indicting Donald Trump for this. It's going to be happening. And, you know, any reasonable person, I think, Chris, I don't speak for myself, and I speak for others as well, when I say any reasonable person wants any politician, right or left, to be held to the highest of standards and to be held accountable. And I don't think it should make a difference whether it's a Democrat or whether it's a Republican. I really don't. For example, and I think Joe Walsh said it best, and I want to read what he said. If there's ever sufficient evidence Hunter Biden committed crimes, then indict him. If there's ever sufficient evidence Joe Biden committed crimes, which, by the way, there hasn't been shown yet, then indict him. And per our justice system, sufficient evidence that Donald Trump committed a number of crimes has already been presented. So it's a really good thing he's been indicted for all those crimes, and he'll have his day in court to defend himself on all those crimes. Nobody is above the law. If Hunter Biden committed crimes, indict him. And there are so many right-wing clowns out there that are saying, oh, Joe Biden was, you know, a close associate, and he's close to this and he's close to that. It really doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. All that matters is where there's proof and where there's evidence. That's all that matters.
Well, here's the thing, right? It's the epitome of hypocrisy across the board, because we bring it up, you bring it up on your show all the time. Anytime that I am in here co-hosting with you or on the show, what do we bring up? We bring up the fact, all right, the fact that if Democrats, if Barack Obama, if Hillary Clinton, if Bill Clinton, right, if name your favorite Democrat had these charges pending in front of them, right, had these scenarios present themselves in which they tried to coerce the Secretary of State in Georgia to find 11,000 plus votes that were not there, the Republicans and anybody that sides with Republicans would be up in arms, would be, you know, just shouting to the rafters as to how we need to get these Democrats out of office, how they need to be thrown in prison, right? Any Democrat whatsoever. So yes, it's not even just about us Democrats realizing if that was the reality, right? If Barack Obama had in any way, shape, or form created a January 6th scenario, right? There's no question that I would have the conviction as a Democrat, and that most Democrats, I think, would have the ability to say, you know what, Barack Obama, we're not down with that. You need to be prosecuted to the furthest extent of the law, and you need to face consequences for what this is. That's not what Republicans are doing. That's absolutely not what. In fact, they're not only not doing that, they're going further. This jackass is about to be indicted for the fourth time, and he still is the point man in the Republican Party. He still, to this day, Monday, in August of 2023, after everything that's gone down, is still the majority of Republicans' choice in the United States of America to be their Republican nominee in 2024. It is beyond absurd. It is a clear indication that we have a real issue in America right now from a political standpoint and how divisive we are. And it is downright just atrocious, to be quite honest with you, that we have a legitimate population in this country that is still steadfast behind this individual who is, as you pointed out, about to be indicted for the 4th time in just a short period of time.
Well, it's mind-boggling
It
to
is.
me. And then you have idiots like Charlie Kirk, who is a complete moron. GED Charlie Kirk, as I like to call him. He goes on social media this morning and he says Donald Trump should go to Maui, bring relief and aid with him, beat Biden to it. The president will show the way to lead. And I say to myself, so what? So he shows up and tosses out a few MAGA hats.
No, Brian, what is he talking about? Go there with aid. Donald Trump doesn't even have enough money to handle his own legal defense of these indictments.
Well, I was getting to that.
What is he going to go with?
Hold on.
Where's he going to get money?
Yeah, I was getting to that.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say was, what do you want? Do you want Donald Trump to show up and throw out some toilet paper and some MAGA hats and maybe buy a few people meals at McDonald's? I mean, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Charlie Kirk is an idiot, and he has no understanding of what he's talking about, as you just mentioned. And it's moronic, and these people are idiots. And it's sad, it's unfortunate, because, again, they're using this terrible, terrible tragedy. I mean, we're talking probably over 1,000 people that have died when it's all said and done. And their bodies will probably never be recovered, which is even worse. And their homes, even the people that have survived, their homes are gone, their livelihood is gone, their jobs are gone, everything is gone. And then you have idiots like Charlie Kirk going on social media trying to make it political and say, oh, Donald Trump will save you. I mean, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And unfortunately, this is the state of politics that we're living in right now, and
to your point that you just made, Brian, on that tragedy, local law enforcement there in Maui has already talked about this, saying, yes, we have determined that the death toll as of right now, but as you pointed out, they believe, and this is a direct quote from one of the law enforcement officials, is that the toughest work is about to come up in the next few days when they're able to go and actually recover some of these people that are missing. This is where it's going to be. I mean, the rubber's really going to meet the road here, and it's going to be a very difficult situation for those in Maui and in Hawaii.
It's a war zone. That's what
Right.
it looks like there. It looks like a war zone. And it's like I said, it's really sad. And there's people out there that are going to be trying to use this and are using this to try to score some sort of political points when we've lost people in this country, so many of them. And it's really sad. It's horrible. We'll take some phone calls if those of you want to call in and comment about this. The number to call is 702-221-7283. And again, the number if you want to join the conversation, 702-221-7283. And it's simple because Donald Trump's probably going to be indicted, if not today, tomorrow, in Georgia.
Right.
He's facing now, which this would be a 4th indictment, the first one being Stormy Daniels, of course, and then we're talking about Jack Smith. And they call it a two-tier justice system when Jack Smith has prosecuted Democrats. Republicans are very forgetful. They forget about that. And now we're in a situation where the good people of Maui, many of them are suffering right now. It's a horrible tragedy. And you have people on the right calling it a two-tier justice system and, Donald Trump to the rescue when you're right, he can't even afford his own legal problems that he's facing right now. It's really mind-boggling to me. And I say this once again to all of you, Hunter Biden has never been a politician. If there's evidence Hunter Biden committed some crimes, then prosecute him for that, indict him for that. There is zero evidence to this point that Joe Biden has done anything wrong legal-wise. You could think morally he did something wrong. Is there a possibility that he might have spoken to some of Hunter Biden's business associates? That could be possible. I don't know. Could Joe Biden have forgotten? Could he have lied? Either are very possible. But that does not mean that Joe Biden broke the law. There's a reason why Donald Trump is now going to be facing a 4th indictment, because there is overwhelming something called evidence, Chris. There's overwhelming evidence that Donald Trump has broken the law multiple times. To this day, Republicans continue to try to investigate Joe Biden and try to link him to something that a member of his family did. If you want to put laws down on the books where members of families can't do scummy things and use the last name of who their father is or someone in their family to make money, then put those laws on the books. But if you're going to treat Hunter Biden like that, then you got to treat people that were actually in the Trump administration, like Ivanka Trump, who made $700 million off of China when Donald Trump was president, Jared Kushner, who took billions of dollars from the Saudis. And by the way, Donald Trump didn't send Mike Pompeo over there to Saudi Arabia. I find it very interesting. He sent Jared Kushner out there, and then Jared Kushner, right after Trump left office, receives billions of dollars from the Saudis, but you won't hear Republicans talk about that. They want to talk about Burisma and how Hunter Biden was making $50,000 a month from Burisma. And somehow they're going to link that to Joe Biden breaking laws. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. It's hypocrisy at its finest. And instead of talking about the real issues that are facing the American people, they want to talk about Hunter Biden.
And I know that we're kind of bouncing back and forth here between, the Donald Trump indictments and, of course, the wildfire tragedies in Maui. But let's focus on what you just talked about, right? Because this idea that Joe Biden is out there just making millions upon millions of dollars as a politician, and that he did back when he was vice president, and that he is now essentially making millions. I mean, it's completely ludicrous. We all live in the same country, I think, right? We all have seen Joe Biden and what he has been over 3 decades. The man was in the Senate. And was there any indication whatsoever that Joe Biden was some fat cat? That was the guy had to, I believe, he had to borrow money to pay for his son's cancer treatments. I believe back when his son was really sick. The guy, there's no indication whatsoever that Joe Biden, and even when he was vice president, was making all these millions of dollars. Look, we get some politicians. Barack Obama's happy to be one of them. End up, they before they get into politics, they're worth hardly anything, and then they get into politics, and then they become millionaires and sometimes multimillionaires, right? And we understand that there's special interests and that there's people that are just willing to support them, right, and willing to just basically give them money left and right. There's no indication that Joe Biden's ever that's not something that raised its head with Joe Biden in his entire political career. Joe Biden's never been looked at as someone who has been financially well off in any way, shape, or form. So this all is it's a huge ruse, in my opinion, that's been put out there by Republicans and especially MAGA lately regarding Joe Biden. They love to talk about how old he is, right, and how he has dementia and all this other kind of stuff too. But the whole idea, Brian Shapiro, that Joe Biden is sitting on a pile of money somewhere and has been just living the good life for the past 30 years is utter BS. It's nonsense. It's just not true. And yes, now that he's president of the United States, I would expect maybe, whether it's speaking engagements, whether it's corporate stuff, whatever it is, I expect that Joe Biden and Jill are probably going to be okay. They're probably going to be well off. But the notion that Hunter Biden, because he got a gig overseas and because Hunter came into some money or whatever, working for Burisma or wherever he's worked for overseas, because he used his name, which thousands upon thousands, you could even say millions of individual Americans and people around the world do all the time. They take advantage of their family name or their contacts or whatever. But the idea that Joe Biden is some guy that's a fat cat sitting on a bunch of money, utter BS. Nonsense.
Yeah, well, again, there's something called evidence, and certainly Republicans have not found any evidence that Joe Biden committed any crimes. Let's open up the phone lines. Again, that number to call, 702-221-7283, and again, the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283. Let's start off with Edward. Edward, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
Hey, Chris. Hey, Brian. Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
Hey, Ed, what's going on?
Hey, guys. Nothing much. Hey, I want to start first off by saying the thing in Maui is terrible. It's really sad, and I hope we can do a lot more. A few prayers, a few, maybe some donations, but whatever we can do to help out there, because they're still our people. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely, 100%.
And like what you said, if it's going to be over 1,000 deaths, think of it like that: 1,000 deaths, and then how many of these people had families? And it's going to take a while for Hawaii to recover after that.
No question. Yep, I agree.
And it breaks my heart a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to bring up another subject of I was going to ask you, would you like to come down to Texas, Brian, and meet some Republicans with us, and I could take you out shooting and, take you to the state capitol and stuff like that? Because I know you kind of badmouth, Republicans, but I'd like to show you from a different perspective.
Yeah, I appreciate that offer, but I have no reasons of shooting a gun.
You big gun fan, Brian?
No.
I don't think he's a big gun
Not
fan,
at all.
Edward. But look, fairness, but Edward, let me chime in. In fairness to Brian, he's not blasting all Republicans.
I'm not.
All right?
Okay.
He blasts on a regular basis
MAGAs.
Republicans that deserve to get blasted. MAGAs, those who are on the extreme right, those that like to vilify us. And when I say us, Edward, I am a Democrat on this show. I am a left-wing progressive Democrat. So, again, I just want to clear that up. I just want to, clear the air there with respect to B-Shap over here. He doesn't just blast all of you guys, all right? He blasts Republicans that deserve to get blasted.
Yeah.
All right.
The extreme right-wingist.
Exactly.
Well,
yes.
there's quite a few of them out there right now, and I call them MAGA supporters. And we had somebody in studio here a few weeks back, a guy named Zach, who is very in touch with the Republican Party here. And Zach will come back in again. And he said, Brian, what would you define a MAGA? What does it mean to you, MAGA? And I said, that's something that Donald Trump, a slogan that Donald Trump made up, Make America Great Again, which, by the way, Donald Trump didn't do. And
he made it up.
That was Ronald Reagan's, by the way. That wasn't.
Yeah, I was going to say Reagan.
Well, Donald Trump is the one that made it popular again.
He stole it.
And when I think of MAGA, I think of bigots. I mean, I'm sorry, that's what I think of. When I think of MAGA, I think of the Donald Trump supporters that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. Yeah. I think of the people where Donald Trump said I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and they would still support me. I think of uneducated people. I think of middle-aged white Americans that are uneducated, that don't understand the issues, that think Donald Trump can do no wrong and he broke no laws, and it's Joe Biden that's broken all the laws, and it's the Biden crime family. Those are what MAGAs are, the anti-maskers, the ones who think Dr. Fauci created COVID, the bigots out there, the ones who attack the Black Lives Matter movement. These are the types of people, when I think of MAGA, that's what I think of. And those are the people that I criticize when I talk about on this show.
Have you ever watched the video of Lil Wayne talking about Black Lives Matter? Have you ever seen that video?
I haven't, but I don't think Lil Wayne is an extremely intelligent person, and I certainly don't think he's extremely...
His story is really good, though. It's like a 2-minute video. Y'all
I know, but Lil Wayne is also the guy...
Lil Wayne on Black Lives Matter.
Lil Wayne is also the guy who was asked on CNN about Black Lives Matter, and when he couldn't articulate 2 sentences, he walked off and he stopped the interview, because Lil Wayne has absolutely no idea what he's talking about, and I don't think he's an extremely intelligent person, and probably the last person that should be talking about
He's a good rapper,
issues.
though. I do like his... He makes
a lot of money rapping, and he has very nice gold teeth that I wish I had. But when it comes to world issues and issues facing this country, or even black people in general, the last person that I would want to hear talk about that is somebody like Lil Wayne.
But in fairness, we haven't heard the video yet. We haven't seen it.
No, I've seen the video that he's talking about.
Oh, you have?
He's criticized the Black Lives Matter movement, and this is a guy, I'd like to know what he's done to help people of his color. I'd like to know. But anyway, that's here nor there.
Yeah.
But thank you.
When do you guys get Alex? Yeah, when are you going to get Alex Jones on?
Alex Jones is not going to come on. He's not doing many interviews. I did have Alex Jones' ex-wife on the show, though. I did have his ex-wife on the show a few months back. Chris was actually here. We did speak to his ex-wife. But Alex Jones is coming to Vegas in a few weeks, and that guy can go to hell. That guy could jump off a cliff as far as I'm concerned. And then I would say it didn't happen. I would do a conspiracy theorist claim on his death. But he is an utter piece of human garbage, Alex Jones, and he can go to hell.
Well, hey, prayers and best wishes to everyone in Maui right now, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Edward.
The call. Number to call,
Thanks, guys.
702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283. All right, Chris, here's what I want to do. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, 2 opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to racism. One that is very legitimate, and there are some officers that are in a lot of trouble for crimes that I believe that they committed. And on the other side, where people take it too far, where a young teen who happens to be black was handcuffed for about 10 minutes, and now the family's crying lawsuit, but it makes a lot of sense why their son was handcuffed, even though he was innocent. I'll explain why. So we'll talk about that when we come back. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Wynn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well, so I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Wynn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
Sapphire Pool and Day Club, the world's only topless gentlemen's day club, introduces its 2023 pool season lineup with a bevy of beauties and social media celebrities throughout the summer who will all host alongside hundreds of Sapphire's topless poolside entertainers. Enjoy brunch in the sun with items like frittata-style omelets, stripping chicken, and French kiss toast before washing it down with signature summertime cocktails. 10 lines beware. Go Bear! Ladies are welcome to go topless within the day club for the ultimate party. Guests can purchase affordable day bed packages, cabana packages, lounge chairs, and more. The best part though? Pushing the Limits will be broadcasting shows every other Friday throughout the pool season with a ton of surprise celebrity guests. Wow! Reserve your spot now. For more info, visit SapphirePoolLV.com or call 702-869-0003. That's 702-869-0003. See you at Sapphire.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent on-site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos, and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call. 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex. And tell them I sent you. Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. I want to tell you guys about Sahara West Urgent Care and Wellness. They're conveniently located on the southwest corner of Sahara and Jones. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. They offer routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. They have on-site x-ray, EKG, ultrasound, and labs. They treat chronic conditions such as asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and more. They also offer general wellness exams, treatments such as testosterone enhancement, and cancer screening. They're located on Sahara, 6125 West Sahara Avenue. Their number is 702-248-0554. And the best part, they accept most major insurances and affordable cash pay prices, office visits starting at just $95. And I'm also a client, so please give them a call, 702-248-0554.
The Klondike Casino is a friendly local spot that features their signature restaurant, the Klondike Grill, serving up fresh food fast. Open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner just off the 95 freeway on Sunset Road in Henderson. You will find the Klondike Casino featuring all your favorite games from the Strip in the comfort of a neighborhood casino. You can place a bet at their full-service sports book or start your day with a breakfast plate that comes with your choice of potato and toast. Or check us out for lunch or dinner and try one of our many sandwiches like the popular beer-battered fish sandwich or the Philly cheesesteak. Check out the full menu at KlondikeSunset.com.
Is your dog suffering from a sensitive stomach? Hi, it's Kelly the Cookie Lady from Mooch's Munchies. Our dogs had super sensitive tummies, and I needed to find a low-fat treat that wouldn't give them gas or other issues. Most of the treats on the market were loaded with fillers, chemicals, and chicken fat. Many of them weren't even food. Well, I knew I could do better, so I developed Mooch's Munchies, and I'm happy to be able to share them with you. Stop by our store or our website, moochesmunchies.com, and find out why we say that Mooch's Munchies are totally pawsome.
Welcome to Hash House A Go-Go, where we've been serving farm food and crafted cocktails for over 2 decades. Visit us for the full Hash House experience at any of our 5 Las Vegas locations. Hash House A Go-Go is where old school meets new and gets twisted. We bring people together over good food and fun. Come in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and come hungry because our portions are huge. Visit us online to see our entire menu at hashhouseagogo.com. Hash House A Go-Go. It's a Midwest thing, and there's nothing else like it. Welcome to Hash House A Go-Go.
Is your dog suffering from a sensitive stomach? Hi, it's Kelly the Cookie Lady from Mooch's Munchies. Our dogs had super sensitive tummies, and I needed to find a low-fat treat that wouldn't give them gas or other issues. Most of the treats on the market were loaded with fillers, chemicals, and chicken fat. Many of them weren't even food. Well, I knew I could do better, so I developed Mooch's Munchies, and I'm happy to be able to share them with you. Stop by our store or our website, moochesmunchies.com, and find out why we say that Mooch's Munchies are totally pawsome.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Pushing the limits on a Monday. Chris Witt in the house. Programming note tomorrow to talk about the writers' strike, and a lot of the actors are on board with the writers. My good friend, the star of the movie Juana Man, he's been in plenty of Eddie Murphy movies, and he's been around for a while. Miguel Nunez Jr. is going to be joining us. Speaking of which, Juana Man 2, I will have a line in Juana Man 2. I've been promised that. But Miguel Nunez has been around a long time, and he's certainly on the side of the writers, and he's going to be joining us tomorrow to talk a little bit about that. Whether Donald Trump will be indicted or not, that's yet to be known, but I would imagine it probably will happen by the latest tomorrow morning. So we will get to that. My favorite gaming bar in town, I know Chris would agree, Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones.
Outstanding spot.
Yes, and great promotions they got. If you're a man or a woman in uniform, a law enforcement, you get a free lunch over there. If you're in the service industry, you get a $50 match play, which means Chris Wynn can walk in there today, put $50 in a machine, which he does from time to time, and then if he loses or wins through the $50, he gets another $50 in slot play for free. How cool is that? Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Please check them out. All right, races. It seems like everybody talks about race, right? For good reason. I think these are important debates, discussions to have, and what a disturbing story coming out of Mississippi, Chris. This is, I don't know if you heard about this, but this is, you want to talk about systemic racism, and we had Mr. Elder on the show, presidential candidate who couldn't even get 1% to even get on the stage, by the way. And we had Elder on the show a few weeks ago, and he claims that, systemic racism doesn't exist, which is mesmerizing to me. I want to read for you a little bit this story that, remember, these are deputies. These are sheriff's deputies. Okay, this happened on January 24th. On the evening of January 24th, sheriff's deputies received a group text message from another deputy on the same shift. Are y'all available for a mission? It said. The deputy, Christian Dedman, informed his colleagues that Hunter Aldwin and Jeffrey Middleton and Daniel Adike were going to a property in Braxton, roughly 30 miles south of Jackson, if you want to know where that was, to handle a complaint received by the officer's chief investigator. The details of what prosecutors say happened that night were shared in a federal charging document. White neighbor told him several black men were staying at a white woman's home there and reported seeing suspicious behavior. There might be surveillance cameras on the property, Dedman told his deputies. And the officers knocked on the door instead of kicking it down, but they told them they had free rein to barge in without a warrant. No bad mugshots, Dedman added in another text. The other deputies understood what he meant. They had the green light to use excessive force on areas of a person's body that would not be captured in a mugshot. And that's exactly what happened. The deputies avoided a surveillance camera above the front door. They entered the home without a warrant. They encountered 2 black men. And over the next 2 hours, Parker and Jenkins were subjected to grueling violence at the hands of 6 white law enforcement officers, by the way, doing nothing wrong. And one of those black men shot in the mouth. The horrors that these 2 black men had to endure are documented. as well as text messages and other details in the report were included in the federal court document filed on July 31st. Let's be very clear here. Not only were these two men not breaking any laws and they were doing nothing wrong, but they were victims of what the officers involved even called themselves, the Goon Squad. Because of their willingness to use excessive force and not report it, the former officers have already pleaded guilty to state charges, all 6 facing a charge of conspiracy to commit obstruction of justice, 4 with obstruction of justice in the first degree, 2 were charged with home invasion, and 1 with aggravated assault. Sounds to me that they should all be charged with attempted murder. That's just my personal opinion. The federal charging documents described how the 2 men were tased, handcuffed, tased again and again after being handcuffed, and as I mentioned, 1 of them shot in the mouth. By the way, these 2 men were unarmed. Let me also repeat that. It's hard for me to go through the details of what these 6 officers did. I can't even imagine what these 2 men had to endure. It's so bad. They were on CNN the other day. This absolutely involved race. These were 6 white officers that tortured these 2 black men for hours. By the way, much of that time, they were handcuffed. Now, why any of these men are not charged with attempted murder or what Derek Chauvin is facing, maybe because there's no video, I don't know. These men, my understanding is their body cameras were intentionally turned off. And how anybody could say systemic racism doesn't exist when you hear about these types of stories within the system of law enforcement, Chris, it is beyond me. It is so disgusting. Beyond me.
Okay, so I hear that story and I get the gist of what you just talked about regarding the details of the situation. This has nothing to do with systemic racism at all. This is just a unit within law enforcement going rogue. This is just complete disregard for any procedure whatsoever. This is law enforcement officers that need to face the music. Okay, and this is absolutely something that no one would condone. No one should condone. And it goes without saying. I mean, it is blatantly obvious that it was something that was racially motivated. And it also smacks of maybe there's some type of like these officers knew these individuals, right? It might have been. So I kind of take back the it's all about racism, because when I hear those details in this scenario, it makes it seem like these officers had some type of vendetta against the 2 individuals, like they actually knew them. So it was absolutely beyond atrocious hearing those stories and those details, and I think any rational, reasonable American or human being, period, would agree that these officers need to face the charges.
All right, so I'll respond
for what is responded.
I'll respond to what you just said.
But systematic racism and racism on a larger scale, and it necessarily doesn't really come into my mind when you think about a situation like this that has taken place.
I'll respond to what you just said, but let me just finish with a little bit more description of what took place. After these men were beaten for hours, the officers next forced them to disrobe and shower together to wash away evidence of abuse before they were even brought to jail. The abuse continued in a bedroom where apparently these men were still assaulting these 2 black men with a piece of wood and a metal sword.
I mean, it's just outrageous, Brian, right? It's outrageous details. Outrageous and beyond the pale.
The officers then hauled the 2 men into a living room where all 6 men spewed racial slurs at them and accused them of taking advantage of a white woman who owned the house. Again, it goes on, but here's where I disagree with you, and I do believe.
Well, if someone shows you who they are, then believe them.
Let me just.
Right?
I mean, I
don't know why you would disagree with anything.
Okay, well, let me just explain to you why I disagree with you. You don't hear stories within law enforcement of 6 black officers attacking 2 white men and beating them for hours and then hurling racial slurs at them because they're white. You do see stories across this country, and while I'm glad it doesn't happen on a daily basis to this extent, thank God, they do seem to happen. Why? Because they're are a group of law enforcement in this country. While I don't think it's the majority, but there are a group of people in this country that call themselves police officers that are racist pigs. Do I think the overwhelming majority of cops would do what these 6 officers did? No, absolutely not. Thank God. Most officers, I think, are decent, good people that risk their lives every day. Here's where the system comes in. Here's where I bring up system. One of these officers shot this black man in the face. If that was a black officer who did that to a white suspect because of that suspect's race, I guarantee you, put a ribbon on it, that black officer would have been charged with murder. This isn't just police brutality I'm talking about. It's the system of our justice system, or as I like to call it, injustice system. None of these 6 officers, who, by the way, beat these 2 black men to a pulp, they could have killed them in any reasonable situation courtroom without systemic racism. This would be attempted murder. What Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd, in my opinion, this is just as bad. You shot somebody in the face. You tased them when they were handcuffed. That's manslaughter at a minimum. Should be murder. When I use the term system, and again, I say it again, and you have to describe it this way. If this was 6 black police officers that tortured 2 white men for hours, and the reason why they tortured them, not that you need a reason, but the reason why they tortured them is because they were white. I say it again. I guarantee you these 6 officers would be in jail right now. Hey, guess what, Chris? These officers aren't in jail right now. It is a system of racism in this country. It's not just the officers that committed these heinous, and by the way, this is a hate crime.
Absolutely.
They were,
yeah,
but
absolutely
okay, but you're making my point for me then, because none of these officers were charged with a hate crime.
Time out. I'm not making your point for me.
Why weren't they charged
I'm
with a hate
agreeing.
crime?
Time out. We don't disagree on this, okay? I think you're trying to prove a point that because I said I don't think it's generally an example, I'll use the word example, of systematic or institutional racism when it comes to this case. This case is clear-cut. It is officers who are racist, all right? That's what it is. You can try to elaborate and say, well, it's part of a bigger system.
Then why weren't they charged for a hate crime?
You let me finish. You can elaborate and say, well, I think it's part of a bigger system in which, institutional racism, where you have, you have basically an essence in America of black people or minorities in America that are just treated differently than white people. Absolutely. So this is an example of that. But I'm not disagreeing with you. There's no disagreement here. All right. Everything you said, I agree with. And in fact, I was going to say 5 seconds ago what you just said, that, and you didn't bring it up until 5 seconds ago. It's absolutely a hate crime. This should be charged as a hate crime against these 6 individuals, these 6 officers, law enforcement officers. It should be charged that way. But I was just simply pointing out that it's a very specific case, obviously, of 6 racist officers who committed crimes. All right, and I don't think it's generally something that you're not going to take a look at that individual case that you just talked about and all these details. You're not going to say, oh yeah, this is an example of institutional and systematic racism. You're going to look at it and you're going to say these are 6 officers who are blatantly racist, who are pieces of garbage that have no business being law enforcement officers and should be charged to the highest extent of the law and should face the consequences. That's the way I would look at it. So to the extent that there's a quote-unquote Brian Shapiro, Chris Wynn disagreement on this, I guess that's the only thing that would be a disagreement, is that me looking at this case and saying, oh, yeah, this is a perfect example of institutional or systematic racism. That's the only disagreement we would have.
My definitive answers when it comes to systemic racism, it's got to be tiered on different levels, and this is obviously tiered on different levels, and it starts obviously with the officers. First of all, the fact that none of the officers were charged with a hate crime is despicable. When you're slurring the N-word at two suspects who, by the way, were unarmed, and there were no drugs in the home. They were looking for drugs, supposedly. There were no drugs found. And you're slurring the N-word at these two men while beating them to a pulp, one of them shot in the face. That is the clear-cut definition of a hate crime. None of these officers were charged with a hate crime. Now, when I talk about the system, I'm talking about the prosecutors in that city. I'm talking about law enforcement in that city. I'm talking about attorneys. I'm talking about judges. I'm talking about jurors.
Right.
I'm talking about a system that I believe is unfair towards minorities. And it's also unfair towards people who do not have money. Because if you have money and you're a celebrity, you can get off for double murder, a la O.J. Simpson. You could get off on hundreds of rape cases, a la Bill Cosby. It is injustice. But that has nothing to do with racism when I'm talking about money. But in this specific situation, listen, we know this. These two men are going to be paid a substantial amount of money. They deserve it. They deserve it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't take away the fact that these 6 officers, are not going to be spending the rest of their lives in prison. Let me be very clear. The man who shot one of these young men, and from what I can see based on the evidence, only because of the color of his skin, should be in jail for the rest of his life. These other officers getting fired or resigning is not enough.
Well, I'll push back on that, and I'm not going to defend him by any stretch of the imagination. But he should absolutely be charged with attempted murder, right? Because obviously the individual's still alive, right? The person wasn't killed, right? So it should be, and we're both not lawyers, but I would expect that attempted murder should be one of the charges, right? Call me crazy, right? Attempted murder should be a charge. You said you should spend the rest of, that's your personal opinion because you're fired up, as I am, about these officers being complete pieces of trash and being racists. So it kind of informs your opinion, Brian, where you're like, oh, the guy should be in jail for the rest of his life. I mean, I guess I would agree with that because I'm kind of on your side. It pisses me off to hear the story. It makes me mad to hear the story. But from a legal standpoint, I would expect, and look, again, we're not lawyers, I would expect attempted murder should absolutely be in it. But you also asked the question, and the question still hasn't been answered. Why haven't these 6 officers been charged with a hate crime in this case? Why? What's the answer?
Well, it's when I go back to systemic racism and the fact that none of these men were charged with hate crimes. None of them were charged with attempted murder, even manslaughter. What they did with evidence is astounding as well. They lied, and they said these officers said they found bags of drugs outside the house. That was a lie. They would say that one of the officers shot one of the suspects, even though they weren't charged with any crimes, in self-defense. That was also a lie. The officers also began to destroy evidence. One of the officers offered to plant a throwdown gun he had in his patrol car on one of the suspects that was beaten. The list goes on and on and on.
So, Brian, complete disregard for any, and I'm not laughing, I'm actually disgusted. Complete disregard for any type of procedure, lying, attempted murder, absolutely the execution of a hate crime. I mean, the whole thing is just terrible. The whole thing is just absolutely beyond the pale, horrendous, and redonkulous in every way, shape, or form. The officers should be charged to the fullest extent of the law.
Well, they're not.
For what it is that they actually were involved with.
Well, they're not, and they weren't. And that's why I say systemic racism does exist, because we're not just talking about 6 officers.
I believe it exists, too. I never said it didn't exist.
That's why we're not just talking about 6 officers who committed the heinous crime. We're also talking about throwing it under the rug and not prosecuting these officers to the highest extent of the law, not even close to that. And that's where the system comes in. Now, I back officers, too. I think you could be pro-Black Lives Matter and you can be pro-police. I happen to be both. Doesn't mean there weren't bad people among the Black Lives Matter protests that committed heinous crimes, because there were. I don't condone that. Just like I would never condone these officers that committed these heinous crimes, or the Derek Chauvins of the world. But there are specific cases where citizens take it too far. And I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about now. Police in Lansing, they're facing a lot of criticism.
In my hometown, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you might have heard of this story, the handcuffing of a 12-year-old who was taking the trash out, the dumpster outside his residence. So the video of the incident went viral, and it resulted in Lansing Police Department addressing the incident. They said, "We are aware of a video circulating on social media. We want to provide some background information on the unfortunate misunderstanding." Now, here's what police were doing. And by the way, this was already been verified, and I did some research on this. Police are not lying. They were searching for suspects involved in a string of thefts. And witnesses described one suspect as wearing neon shorts and a white shirt, a young black male. Police said an officer saw someone matching the description and attempted to contact them, but the person fled and ran to a nearby apartment complex. Another officer was in the area. He saw a 12-year-old who was wearing a similar outfit, detained him for questioning. So the 12-year-old that was handcuffed, that didn't commit a crime, was almost identical to the suspect that they were searching for. He was wearing the same colored shorts.
Right.
He was wearing the same colored shirt. He was around the same age. He looked like another individual. Now, I understand that it's probably a little bit traumatic, especially for somebody who didn't do anything wrong, like this 12-year-old who was just taking out the trash, to be handcuffed by police. That is not a pleasant experience. There have been a few times in my life. Now, I wasn't 12 years old. I was an adult, but I was handcuffed and I was innocent, and they handcuffed me for the wrong reason. It's a very unpleasant experience. However, if police are looking for a suspect that committed some crimes in the area, and you're wearing the exact clothing of the description, then police have the right to detain you. That's not against the law, because they have to have reasonable suspicion that you have committed a crime. That was reasonable suspicion. So what's gone on now? The police have apologized to this young man, which, by the way, I'm not even sure they had to apologize. He wasn't roughed up. He wasn't physically harmed.
It was a courteous thing to do.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Right. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that they didn't have to apologize. They didn't do anything wrong. Now, the 12-year-old was released after about 10 minutes after the father came out, and they found out that, no, he was not the person responsible, this young man. So what have the parents decided to do? They decided to make the rounds on networks like CNN and others, claiming about how their 12-year-old is going to be mentally damaged for the rest of his life, which is, by the way, nonsense. They're lying. They're looking for a money grab. The people who deserve money are the people that had to deal with those 6 officers that beat them for 2 hours. This young man doesn't deserve any money. His family doesn't deserve any money. And they're lying. They're going on national television and they're doing a disservice to real victims of police brutality. And they're going on these national networks. Law enforcement, they have to have the ability to be able to do their job. And the law is pretty simple. A police officer, even if you're innocent, a police officer is allowed to detain you. They're allowed to ask for your ID. And they're allowed to handcuff you if they have reasonable suspicion that you may have committed a crime. Doesn't mean you had to have committed a crime. They are conducting an investigation. This had nothing to do with racism. This had to do with the description of a suspect or suspects that were apparently stealing things at a property. This young man, sadly, was wearing the same articles of clothing. I don't fault the officers for detaining him and handcuffing him. And now the family is saying they are going to be taking legal action against the city. This is an embarrassment.
This is pretty straightforward stuff. The situation in which you had 6 law enforcement officers with the 2 black individuals, they were absolutely complete disregard for procedure and policy. And in the situation you just described in Lansing, Michigan, with the 12-year-old, is an example of law enforcement absolutely following procedure and how they do things as far as law enforcement is concerned. And yes, you called it perfectly when you called it what it was, which is a money grab. This is absolutely a money grab on the family's part. I don't need to we don't need to talk about whether or not the kid is going to be psychologically damaged. That's completely, both of us, I think, would agree that that's going over the top with that description. We've seen the worst case scenarios play out in these situations in which 12-year-olds or it doesn't even matter how old they are, black men or women or boys or girls losing their lives in situations like this, where they are absolutely have no business losing their lives. Yeah. It did not play out that way in this case in Lansing, and I think that absolutely the officers did the right thing in Lansing, and they did beyond way over the line the wrong thing in the other case with the other 6 law enforcement officers.
There's 2 different situations. One where I believe racism and hatred and bigotry and and police brutality. And then this is a situation where law enforcement doing the right thing, and now they're getting called out for, in what my opinion is, doing nothing wrong. We'll take some phone calls on the other side. 702-221-7283. Again, the number 702-221-7283. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Wynn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well, so I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Gwynn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
Sapphire Pool and Day Club, the world's only topless gentlemen's day club, introduces its 2023 pool season lineup with a bevy of beauties and social media celebrities throughout the summer who will all host alongside hundreds of Sapphire's topless poolside entertainers. Enjoy brunch in the sun with items like frittata-style omelets, stripping chicken, and French kiss toast before washing it down with signature summertime cocktails. 10 lines beware. Go Bear! Ladies are welcome to go topless within the day club for the ultimate party. Guests can purchase affordable day bed packages, cabana packages, lounge chairs, and more. The best part though? Pushing the Limits will be broadcasting shows every other Friday throughout the pool season with a ton of surprise celebrity guests. Wow! Reserve your spot now. For more info, visit SapphirePoolLV.com or call 702-869-0003. That's 702-869-0003. See you at Sapphire.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent on-site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos, and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call. 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex. And tell them I sent you. Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. I want to tell you guys about Sahara West Urgent Care and Wellness. They're conveniently located on the southwest corner of Sahara and Jones. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. They offer routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. They have on-site x-ray, EKG, ultrasound, and labs. They treat chronic conditions such as asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and more. They also offer general wellness exams, treatments such as testosterone enhancement and cancer screening. They're located on Sahara, 6125 West Sahara Avenue. Their number is 702-248-0554. And the best part, they accept most major insurances and affordable cash pay prices, office visits starting at just $95. And I'm also a client, so please give them a call, 702-248-0554.
Zen World Premium CBD offers full and broad spectrum CBD oil, extracts, and capsules which are designed to help you feel your best. Their products are sourced from the best organic hemp and natural ingredients on the market and are tested for quality, purity, and potency. They have a full range of items from health and wellness to beauty to pets. Call 725-205-9223. Visit online at zenworld.com or stop by their location at 9895 South Maryland Parkway and Silverado Ranch Parkway. Mention KSHP for 10% off in store or use code KSHP online for 15% off.
On Scale with Jeremy Lowe. Saturday afternoons at 2 on KSHP North Las Vegas. AM and FM. K29 6HP North Las Vegas. And KSHP.com.
Welcome back. It is Push on a Monday. We're also going to be at Sapphire Gentlemen's Club Topless Pool this Friday. It's funny because I keep inviting Chris Wynn, and he keeps saying no. I think he's afraid of topless women. I can't think of any other reason why he wouldn't want to go.
I'm not afraid of topless women whatsoever.
How about
what I'm
topless men?
afraid of is actually myself being topless. That's what sparks fear into me.
Well, that's understandable.
Or seeing Brian Shapiro topless, too. That's not something. And by the way, speaking of which, so we've had some comments all over social media, Brian, on the show today, in the last 15 to 20 minutes, because before the last segment started, we had a little wardrobe change. Brian Shapiro, talk to us about what you got going on there.
The shirt. Oh yeah, there's a microphone. I forgot.
Yeah, you got to
be a professional broadcaster. Let's Go Jack Smith is the shirt that I ordered. I have one issue though. It just came in the mail and it's a small.
It's looking a little snug, my friend.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie to you.
I ordered
kind of tight.
I ordered
Nunchuck.
a large. I ordered a large and it's a small.
Are you having trouble breathing at all?
Yes,
are you able to exhale and inhale properly?
Speaking of health, let's wish Paul McKeskey well because he got a knee replacement surgery today. I spoke to him briefly last night. He was a little nervous, but we hope Mo's doing well. And he said all goes well. He's still scheduled to join me via Zoom and come on Thursday. So hopefully he's doing well, and I'm sure the good doctors, surgeons did a good job in that knee replacement. So we wish him well, of course. I want to tell you guys about my good friend Blake Gwynn. Of course, late great-grandfather was the governor here of the great state of Nevada, Kenny Gwynn. Blake works for Keller Williams, and I got to tell you, man, if you're thinking of buying or selling a home, there's no better people to talk to than Blake Gwynn. He grew up his entire life and helped out my family when my family reached out to him, and I promise you he'll help you out. He's going to be back in studio this week, but give him a call. 702-540-3311. Again, if you're thinking of buying or selling a home, there's nobody better in this town than Blake Gwynn. Tell him I sent you. 702-540-3311. We have been talking about these two different situations, one which is clear hate crime, police brutality, and another situation where police are just doing their job. And now this 12-year-old's parents are filing lawsuits against the city, the police department, which I think is completely and utterly ridiculous.
Looking for some coin.
Yeah, exactly. They're looking
for a little payout.
They're looking for a payday. I'm surprised Benjamin Crumbs didn't take this case because this is the type of case he probably would take. Taking your phone calls at 702-221-7283 and again 702-221-7283, and then we're going to be talking some Raiders next segment. Let's go to Carl. Carl, what's going on, man?
Yeah, Brian and Chris, hope you had a good weekend, guys.
You too.
Listen, it's talking about systemic racism. This was a number of years ago. It's been going on for a long time. Before I moved here, I lived in West Los Angeles, and there was a civil rights group who put together a little experiment. They sent 10 or 12 very expensive cars with black drivers, very well dressed in extremely expensive suits, through this neighborhood of West LA. I won't mention the neighborhood. Every single one of them, and they gave them recorders, were in the car. Every single one of them was stopped by the police, and the questions on the recorders were, where are you going? Why are you here? What are you doing here? Where do you live? And so forth. Every single one.
Yeah.
So that's systemic racism.
Well, you can mention the neighborhood, right? I don't know why you wouldn't be able to mention.
Well,
It's
it's Brentwood
Los
area. Brentwood
It's
area.
a nice town. Okay, so Brentwood. So you're talking about
Yeah.
very, very, very exclusive community, very, very high end as far as.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's basically, I lived right in that area, but I know, but the civil rights group put that together,
Right.
and they wanted to get proof of systemic racism, and they got it. They had white people driving through there in old beat up cars. Not one of them was ever even stopped for any reason. But these were black drivers in Mercedes and Jaguars, and specifically very expensive cars and very well dressed.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you have somebody like Larry Elder, right, who obviously is black, he's a Republican, and he's a conservative talk show host. And when you have somebody like him say that systemic racism doesn't exist, middle-aged, crusty white Republicans in this country have orgasms. They love it. There's nothing more that a white, crusty Republican would like to hear than a black man saying racism or systemic racism doesn't exist. And many of his supporters and many of Larry Elder's listeners are bigots. They're bigots. That's what they are. They're hatred bigots who don't think racism exists, when yet they're probably the people that hate people like Larry Elder if he wasn't a conservative talk show host. I mean, it's mind-boggling. It's nonsense. And I think of Ahmaud Arbery as a perfect example of systemic racism. A black man jogging down the street, not committing a crime. 3 Klansmen decide to lynch him. And then all the officers saw the video of the lynching. They didn't make any arrests. Top law enforcement within that agency put it under the rug. Local politicians put it under the rug. All the powerful people in that city put it under the rug. And even worse, they lied to Ahmaud Arbery's mother and family. That is the definition of systemic racism. Tiers and tiers of powerful people, whether it be law enforcement, politicians, lawmakers, who swept that lynching under the rug. The only reason why those 3 Klansmen are behind bars is because one of them released the video to a local news agency. That's the only reason why. And for Elder to say that had nothing to do with systemic racism, I guarantee you, just like this other case that we were talking about, I guarantee you, Chris and Carl, I guarantee you that if 3 black men murdered a white man jogging down the street because of his race, they would have been in jail that night, and they would have been charged that night. That is why systemic racism...
they would have been executed by now,
Yeah, well, Carl, to your point, right, because you told the story about Los Angeles, and to Brian's point as well, too. Brian's brought this up many times on his show, talking about, look, there's systemic and institutional racism, and then there's just racial profiling that's being done by police officers. The story you told is essentially racially profiling. The story that Brian's told many times on the air, a friend of ours who happens to be a prominent member of the media here in Las Vegas, who happens to be African-American, happens to be black, right? And Brian was in the car with him, and there was a situation that involved racial stereotyping and racial profiling that took place. So this is not something that's just taking place in Brentwood, in Los Angeles, or in Southern California, or here in Southern Nevada. This is something that goes on around the country. That is something that law enforcement and essentially American society, we should not be proud of any type of social profiling whatsoever.
One final point. Aubrey could have helped himself. He actually made a big mistake. He should have been jogging down the street wearing a hood and gloves.
Yeah.
He would have been in good shape.
Yeah,
he wouldn't have been hurt.
That's possible. Yeah, you might be right about that. Carl, I appreciate the phone call.
Thanks, Carl.
Okay.
Thank you so much. 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-7283 is the number to call. As of right now, the breaking news is members of the media are standing by at the many entrances to the Lewis Station Courthouse as we await more witnesses. Court closes at around 5. But the Judge McBurney has indicated that he will keep his courtroom open until the DA's office tells him to close up. So it does appear as though there could be an indictment, if not in the next few hours. By the latest, it appears tomorrow morning. By the latest. And this would be the 4th time now, Chris, that Donald Trump, a former president, has been indicted. So this is mesmerizing.
And what do you think about the dynamic, Brian? Think about this. I mean, it seems like to me, and call me crazy once again, every time
crazy, Chris.
this guy gets indicted, it's almost like it makes him stronger. It almost makes it seem like
among
MAGA
his base.
gets even
Yeah.
more fired up and says, you know what it is? It's the system against our guy, Donald Trump. We stand by him. He's getting screwed over. It's Joe Biden's biased, left-wing, progressive administration / Justice Department that is going after our guy, Donald Trump. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're not.
Yeah.
Among his base, he gets stronger, and these are the same people that want to investigate the Biden crime family and Hunter Biden's laptop. And you know, I was getting into before we got to take a break here, but I was getting into some debates with some buffoons on social media, as I do, Chris.
You do that on occasion. You're not afraid to air your opinion or your takes on social media.
I do do this from
time to
as
time.
you know, from time to time. I do get into it with people from time to time on social media, and usually, not all the time, Chris, but usually some of these people kind of curl up, you know, and but I got these people on social media that are talking about Republicans and Democrats, and of course they're talking about the fact that, you know, the Joe Biden has been so close to this and so close to that and so close to this. And so I said, you don't get convicted of a crime and you don't get indicted when you're close to something. Like if it's your son or a member of your family, you get indicted and you get convicted usually when there's evidence to back the fact that you committed a crime. Oh, but his son did this, his son did that. And there's so evidence that Joe Biden made money off of his son and this and that and influence. And I said, okay, where's the evidence? In this country, you don't get convicted or even indicted for being close to somebody that committed a crime. To this day, they've shown no direct evidence.
Let's take it to the extreme, right? I know we got to take a break, but you know, Hunter Biden. What if he's I mean, if he's a serial rapist, right? And there's found that there's no connection. He's a grown adult who's not a public figure. All right, excuse me, doesn't work in politics at all. You can you can justify that Joe Biden has nothing to do with it.
I agree. We agree on that, and we'll have to see this fourth indictment, whether it's going to happen while we're on the air today or tomorrow. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to switch topics. We're going to talk a little Raiders football, first preseason game of the year for the Raiders, a nice one at that. And we're going to talk to Gully, Scott Gulbranson from Silver and Black today. Been a little while since we spoke with Gully. Break down the game and what does this mean? Is it important? And then there's a little controversy between the Raiders and Sports Center. JT the Brick had something to say about that. We'll ask Gully about that as well. I'll let Chris ask that one. He's fired up to ask that question. We'll take a quick break. Be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits. I want to tell you guys about Sahara West Urgent Care and Wellness. They're conveniently located on the southwest corner of Sahara and Jones. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. At Sahara West Urgent Care, they'll take care of all your healthcare needs. They offer routine services such as physicals, STD testing, car accident treatment, and work injuries. You name it, they do it. They have on-site x-ray, EKG, ultrasound, and labs. They treat chronic conditions such as asthma, blood pressure, diabetes, and more. They also offer general wellness exams, treatments such as testosterone enhancement and cancer screening. They're located on Sahara, 6125 West Sahara Avenue. Their number is 702-248-0554. And the best part, they accept most major insurances and affordable cash pay prices, office visits starting at just $95. And I'm also a client, so please give them a call, 702-248-0554.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. please be sure to check out Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo in Jones. Great promotions, great food, great atmosphere, great people, great place to play. I know C-Win agrees. Jackson's Bar and Grill, my favorite gaming bar, located at Flamingo and Jones. We haven't talked Raiders, or at least Raiders, for a long period of time, more than a few minutes. Well, the Raiders had their first preseason game of the year, and it just happened to be home against the San Francisco 49ers, and they took care of business. Pretty good game, especially from a defensive side. Really nice to see O'Connell throwing some good balls, but I also thought it was important to see how physical some of these younger players were on this Raiders football team, Chris. And good crowd, good atmosphere. And even though preseason wins and losses don't mean much, you certainly want to see from a standpoint of how some of these younger players look out there in the field, and they look really good. So I figured what better person to join us to talk a little bit about this, smoking his cigar, I just saw. Gully, Scott Gulbranson, Silver and Black Today podcast founder, joining us right now. Always good to have you, Gully. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
Good, although I did not get the memo about having to wear a white hat today. I mean,
this is rare for me.
Nobody told me. You guys look like you're the referee crew. What's going on?
And Gully, a funny thing, too, is Brian Shapiro's father, Dave Shapiro, who's here live in studio, also sporting a pale white hat as well.
Wow.
The white hat memo did get around everybody except for you and Numchucks. But that's all right.
We're going to play polo after this.
Exactly.
So are you guys these white extremists I've been hearing about that you guys talk about?
Yeah, that's exactly what we are.
You nailed it perfectly, my friend. Absolutely.
Let me tell you something. There's no white extremist that's going to be wearing "Let's Go Jack Smith" anytime soon. I'll tell you that. Anyway, Gully, I went to the game yesterday, and it was good atmosphere. It was a lot of fun. It was actually nice to go as a fan, not a member of the media yesterday. I was just a fan, enjoying the game with some friends, drinking some adult beverages, and it was a real good time. Before we get to the actual game, Chris has something he wants to point out to you, and my good friend JT the Brick put out this tweet. We want to get your thoughts on it. Chris, what did JT say?
Yeah, so our colleague, right, and our friend Gully, of course, is JT the Brick, long time worked with the Raiders across the board. And look, we focus a lot, right, when it comes to preseason on the signal callers, right, Gully? I mean, let's be honest about it. We care about the quarterbacks and what they're able to do and what they're able to produce. So JT went on Twitter and was a little fired up with ESPN SportsCenter. He talked about SportsCenter just showed a package of highlights from yesterday's game. 2 sacks of Trey Lance, tip touchdown, 2 completions from Sam Darnold, not one Raiders completion, and one, by the way, is in all caps. TD or highlight of their 34 points. Not one! Exclamation point. Nothing of quarterback Aiden O'Connell, like he didn't even exist. Hashtag Raider Nation. Now, look, I would contend that, and JT is our guy, right? I've been friends with him for a long period of time here in Vegas, as has Brian.
Sure.
And I'm sure, Gully, you probably have a relationship with him as well. I would think he's going a little bit over the top here, and this is the reason why, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Obviously, when you're talking about the San Francisco 49ers, it's one of the best teams in the NFC. They have aspirations to go to the Super Bowl, and one of the question marks of that team is the quarterback, right? Who the starting quarterback's going to be? Obviously, whether it's going to be between the 3 of those guys, and so Trey Lance happens to be one of them. With the situation with the Raiders, it's not the same, especially when it comes to the national media. When you're talking about ESPN SportsCenter, it doesn't get more national than that. They're going to focus on the quarterback situation in San Francisco. They're not going to be necessarily concerned, is the word I'll use, with Aiden O'Connell and him putting up solid numbers for the Las Vegas Raiders, because Aiden O'Connell is not going to be the quarterback here in Las Vegas. It's going to be.
Do we have a question for
Jimmy
Gully?
Garoppolo? So essentially, I elaborated there, but yeah. So
what's
as,
the point
as Shap chimes in, as I was about to solidly cap this off and ask Gully a question. Your thoughts on JT the Brick and his perspective there regarding quarterbacks in this game between the Niners and the Raiders.
Yeah. There you go. There's a question.
Well, I got to start off with number one.
Played by Brian Shapiro, by the way.
Number one, yeah, JT is a great guy. I happened to follow him when we were on the Raiders flagship station, and always a great human being to me and helpful and just an amazing guy. But I understand it. But number one, does ESPN, is it relevant anymore, right? I mean, listen, if you watch NFL Network today, you watch some of the other networks, and you look online at coverage of the NFL over the weekend, Aiden O'Connell is one of the top stories, right? So they are getting the love there. But it's a good point. I mean, look, ESPN decides that they're going to do highlights of this game, and they're going to show instead how poorly Trey Lance did, right? Because they've gotten into that. It seems to me ESPN likes to play on the clickbait stuff about celebrating people's downfalls instead of maybe looking at somebody who had a good game, a rookie coming in, a rookie, frankly, that I was doubtful when they drafted him. So I think there's something to that as well. But I will add this, and this does not negate what JT said, because I agree with him on one level. But on the second level, the Raiders have not been relevant themselves in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, you're not going to get any pass. And I tell the fans who listen to our story, because they get very upset about the national media and how they treat the Raiders. It's justified in some aspects. In other aspects, I said, you know what? What Al Davis said, just win, baby. If you win and you start to put things together and you prove people wrong. Now, if you remember last year in the preseason, the Raiders went undefeated too. They went out and had a 6-11 season. A lot of folks, I mean, look at Rich Eisen was talking weekly about how he believed the Raiders could unseat the Chiefs last year as the division champions. So they got a lot of love last year, and then the Raiders let everybody down. So I think a lot of the national media is really going to double down on the Raiders being bad this year, and they're picked to finish last in the division, right? Even behind the Broncos, who didn't look very good either. So I think if you look at that, things will take care of themselves. But certainly, you look at a young guy like Aiden O'Connell, a walk-on at Purdue, starts his final 2 years, comes out, has a great game. Yes, it's preseason. We understand that. But so I understand a little bit of the sentiment there.
Yeah, I thought he threw a lot of good balls yesterday. Very accurate. I loved his decision-making. Didn't try to force the issue. A little bit of scrambling here and there as well. He's an athletic kid, and he had a great game. The defense, you have to give them. Listen, we could break down all the positions and all these younger players that might not be seeing a ton of action. They're still fighting to stay on this roster, but I give them credit. They all played very hard. I loved watching guys like Devontae Adams on the sideline and Max Crosby just getting really excited for their teammates. That's something you like to see, right? The camaraderie on the sideline was very good. Guys were excited for each other, and that was also fun. We can dive into the best performances, but the bottom line is these are guys trying to make the roster. A lot of these guys that had great games are fighting to make the roster, but it's a positive. It was a nice performance. Fans had a great time. I don't know if the 49er fans did. There weren't a lot of highlights there. But listen, it was nice to see the Raiders and these younger players that are many of them fighting for roster spots, play their hearts out and play hard. And as much as the blood, sweat, and tears they put in practice, it was nice for them to show it off on the field in front of the home fans.
Well, Brian, and let me add this too, because yes, it's just preseason. No question about that. But remember, when you're a team coming off a 6-11 season, you got doubts about your head coach because of what happened early last year. You have to start to look at how the mood and how the feel is around the team. You listen to the guys who cover the team every day, the beat writers, and they talked about it on the press conference today with Coach Josh McDaniels. I asked him the question, where are you in the evolution of changing the culture within the Raider organization around the players, around the coaches? And part of his answer was, yeah, it takes time to do that, but you feel like you're on the right track. And I think you see that. That's what you're looking for in these preseason games. Yes, superlatives for players like Aiden O'Connell and some of the other guys. Yes, you look for that. But what those of us who are studying it on a daily basis, what we look for is their natural progression, is there incremental improvement. And by the way, the mood has changed. It's nothing against Derek Carr, by the way, but you have a new sheriff in town. It's Jimmy Garoppolo. We understand that. But Aiden O'Connell is going to be important, guys, because listen, the reality is Jimmy Garoppolo, the chances of him not playing all 17 weeks is pretty high based on his history.
Yeah, I do agree with you there. And he could listen. O'Connell could be in there for more than most fans would think, and I certainly agree. With that being said, it's nice to have a game like that, and the mood is great on the sidelines. But to me, the real test is an if. I'm not saying they're going to be 2-5 or 1-4. But I think we look at that schedule and we say it's a possibility. Yep. If they're 1-4 or 2-5 or 0-3, whatever the case may be to start the season, then I want to see what the mood is. I want to see how players react. To me, that's the test, not after. And I know you're not saying that either, but after a preseason game where they have a nice W, I want to know where the mood is midway through the season if they are below 500. We hope they're not, but I think chances are they very well might be. And then I want to see where the mood is. As far as McDaniels goes, listen, I've been pretty outspoken about McDaniels. I hope I'm wrong. I'm one of those people that at the end of the year, if they're an above 500 team, I'll give McDaniels all the credit in the world and say, hey, looking forward to him coming back year 3, even if they don't make the playoffs, if they have a winning record. But I don't think that's going to happen. Josh McDaniels is an unproven head coach. He failed in Denver. I understand he was the offensive coordinator in New England. I get that, but he also had the best quarterback in the history of the game and arguably the best coach in the history of the game. I throw all that away right now, and I say, what has he done as a head coach? To this point, he's done nothing, okay? He's failed. Now, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he succeeds here, but I'm not one of those guys that's very high on Josh McDaniels. I'm not high on the play calling. And now we get to see what he's able to do. There needs to be some improvement this season. I don't want to hear the excuses about, well, we got a new quarterback in there. That was their decision to get rid of Derek Carr. I don't want to hear those excuses. I'm not saying you have to make the playoffs, but I think, if you win 5 or 6 games this year, I'm just saying, I'm just throwing that out there. I know we got a season to play, but I think Josh McDaniels needs to prove that there's actual real improvement, and I'm talking about wins and losses.
Yeah, listen, it's a results business. If you don't produce results, then you lose your job. So there's no question about that. He has the opportunity to do it. I think when you've had, in essence, a rebuild again, there is some leeway that's going to be given to him, because I don't think Mark Davis, unless he loses the locker room, meaning that they could finish and not make the playoffs, but if you're showing consistent improvement, then I think he gets another chomp at the bit. If things go incredibly south, which I don't think they will, but you never know, and he loses the locker room, then suddenly you got a big problem there. But I think, again, it's all based on results. It is a meritocracy. And it doesn't matter what you did in New England. It doesn't matter what you did anywhere. You got to do it here. And so this is why you take a preseason game and you say, okay, in the long scheme, in the long game, doesn't mean a whole ton. But if they can that's the message they've given this team, they've given the media, everybody over this course of training camp, which is consistency. So if you go out and you show consistency, meaning that your offense is producing, your defense is getting better, because they're not all the way there on defense. But yesterday, as you talked about some of these young players, you saw a difference there. You saw swarming to the football. You saw turnovers created, which is something the Raiders have not done. And yes, it's squad 2 versus squad 2. It's not the A players. But at the same time, it's got to reach that. You have to have depth, and you have to have guys at all levels playing like that. And so one sample size is good. Now we'll see if they can do it against the Rams coming up this week in practice and in the game. But clearly, you're right, Brian. There's no excuses anymore. You have to start showing results.
Scott, Brian brought up the young players that have a spotlight on them in these preseason matchups. That was the case again yesterday. We talked about Aiden O'Connell and the impact that he had. We talked about some of the other guys that also that made some noise. Obviously, I'm talking about Zamir White in the backfield for the Raiders. Obviously, we have that dark cloud that is Josh Jacobs holding, is hanging over the silver and black right now. But we got a chance to see White. We got to see McCormick. Even Amir Abdullah and Williams got into the mix a little bit. And from a receiving standpoint as well, too, with Fotheringham had a solid game and Keelan Cole as well, too. Is this shaping up, Scott Gulberson, to being very New England Patriot-esque, especially from a backfield standpoint, as you see what transpired as far as a running back by committee situation for the Raiders?
Well, absolutely. But here, let me make this statement before I talk about individual performance. And that is, this Raiders team is always going to be better with Josh Jacobs back there, right? It is the business of the NFL. We know where the market is on running backs right now. I don't argue against that, because it is what it is. That's the market. But I will tell you this. I think Zamir White did well yesterday. He was efficient. He showed something. He hasn't run the ball a lot. If you look at what he did last year, he barely played. Now, is he going to be a quote-unquote replacement for Josh Jacobs? Absolutely not. But the Raiders, in that system, Josh McDaniels' system, as you mentioned, in New England and how it worked, I don't think it'll be much different. But if you look at the NFL overall, running back by committee might not be the right word, but it definitely is, hey, we're going to use a running back. We're going to get them in there. We're going to draft a young player. We're going to pay him on a rookie contract. And we're going to be developing whoever takes over for him right after him, because we're not going to pay a running back $15, $16, $18 million a year. That's just where we are economically in the league. So you look at what happened yesterday. Was Zamir White incredible? No. Was he efficient? Yes. My co-host on my podcast, Mo Moten, disagreed with me. He wasn't that impressed with him. I was impressed only from the standpoint of, I think the kid can be a good runner. Is he going to replace the guy who won the rushing title last year? No, he's not. But I think you have to start somewhere, and the Raiders need to know what they have. And with Jacobs holding out most likely until the first week of the season, they're going to see what they have in Zamir White, and then they're going to make some player personnel decisions. Do they have to draft somebody next year? All this kind of stuff comes up, and they're going to have to do it, and they're going to have to figure it out. because they have to have that plan B, because Josh Jacobs, either way, even if he does come back this year and play on the tag, which I have 90% confidence he will, then they're going to have to think about next year and moving on past Josh Jacobs, because they're just not going to pay the money.
Scott, usually towards the end of preseason, maybe the last game, maybe the second to last game, most coaches will play some of their starters, even the starting quarterback, for maybe a couple snaps here and there, maybe one drive. What do you think is going to happen here with Garoppolo? Are we going to see him in the preseason at all?
I would bet on no, because first of all, he's coming off an injury. And then number two, you have his injury history. I don't know that they want to risk that, and I understand it. They want to get to the regular season with their top guy, which is fine, which is great for Aiden O'Connell, because Aiden O'Connell is going to get a lot of playing time. The post-game press conference yesterday, Josh McDaniels intimated that. He talked about that. He's going to get a lot of time. Brian Hoyer isn't even playing. Brian Hoyer technically right now is the number 2, with O'Connell the number 3. But I think they're giving O'Connell every opportunity to move up past the old guy, Brian Hoyer, and be the number 2 quarterback. So I don't see Garoppolo playing in the preseason. If he were to play in the preseason, I could see in that final game, and maybe he gets a series in there just to test it. But why would you risk it with his history?
I guess my last question for you, Goalie, would be, do you think the Raiders are a better football team now than they were a year ago at this time?
You know, I think it's inconclusive at this point. I think that if you look at what we saw, again, it's such a small sample. It's one sample of one game. I think that, combined with the practices last week and what we heard coming out of those practices, is that I think you have more guys in the locker room who are bought into what Josh McDaniels is demanding and selling. You have standards of performance. You have to establish those in a culture inside a team. And if you have that and you have all those guys bought in, you do. I think that's why guys like Darren Waller, as talented as he is, guys like Derek Carr, talented as well. I think you see those guys gone because they necessarily weren't bought into it, or they didn't fit the mold they wanted. So whether or not they're a better team overall still waits to be seen. But I do think overall, from every report that I've had, all the beat guys that I do talk to and message them yesterday, it was like, yeah, there's a different feel around here and at practice. And if that's the case, they could very well be better. We'll see if the record dictates that.
I hope so. We'll have to wait and see how the season plays out. Before we let you go, Goalie, I want you to give out the information. How do people follow you, the podcast? How do people follow you on social media?
Sure. You can follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you're calling it, whatever you want it to be. You can follow me at LV Goalie. The show is SNB Today. You can also listen to Silver and Black Today anytime. Wherever you get your audio, just search Silver and Black Today and you can subscribe there.
Great job as always, Goalie. Appreciate it. Hopefully we can catch up with you next week and maybe talk about another Raiders preseason victory. Always a pleasure having you on, my friend. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Goalie.
Sounds great, guys. Just make sure you memo me on what color hat I'm supposed to wear.
We'll let you know. We'll let you know next time. I promise you that. Scott, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Take care, guys.
Appreciate it. That's Scott Gulbranson, Goalie. Silver and Black Today podcast he created and knows his stuff. He's honest, though. Yeah. That's what I like about him. Of course, he's a Raiders fan at heart. We all want to see the Raiders succeed, but he's also honest, and I appreciate that. Listen, I'll say it again. I like Mark Davis. I think Mark Davis is a really good dude. Don't think he's a good owner.
I think he's a very good WNBA owner.
He's done
think he is.
You know why? You know why? Because he's not afraid to spend money.
Not an NFL owner.
And anybody who owns a WNBA team that's not afraid to spend money, you're probably going to be successful. Mm-hmm. And Mark Davis has done a phenomenal job with the Aces. To me, he's a less popular version of like a Jerry Jones, where he thinks he's a football guy. And again, let me repeat, I like Mark Davis. I think he's a good dude. I've talked to him a number of times. Nice guy, really nice guy. He's not arrogant. He's not that kind of guy. He's not a football guy. He's made some, in my opinion, very bad football decisions. Okay. Go back to John Gruden. I understand Gruden's a personality. The guy's won half his games as a head football coach. Right. Am I saying he's a bad coach? No. He's not a great coach. He's won half his games in the NFL. And you sign him to a $100 million contract. That was embarrassing. That's number one. And that has nothing to do with the stuff that John Gruden did, his behavior and what he said. Right. I'm just talking from a football perspective. Then you had a chance to bring back Versace and this coaching staff after Gruden was let go. I thought they did a wonderful job after Gruden was let go in getting them to the playoffs. Wonderful job.
Absolutely. Solid. Yeah.
Carr looked good. The team improved from midseason to the end of the season. Yeah. A lot of people were feeling really good about this team. They would have gone through a wall for this guy. And what does Davis do? The thing that I believe was a humongous mistake. You should have brought that coaching staff back for at least one more year because they deserved it after what they did, getting them to the playoffs. He gets rid of the group, and he brings in a guy by the name of Josh McDaniels, who was a disaster in Denver. Let's call it for what it was. His tenure as head coach in Denver, which was not very long, was a disaster. That's why he was fired. And we see these guys that ride the coattails of Tom Brady. And I get it. You were the offensive coordinator for the Patriots. You won multiple championships. I get that. Mm-hmm. You also had a guy named Tom Brady who was executing. You had a guy named Bill Belichick, who's arguably the best NFL coach of all time, certainly one of the best. I look at other guys like Weiss, a guy who left the Patriots and became the head coach of Notre Dame. How did that work out? Okay. I don't think Josh McDaniels is a very good head football coach. I hope I'm wrong. And unlike some people in the media, at the end of the year, if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. And I'll say, you know what? I was wrong about Josh McDaniels. He did a really good job this year. Yeah. It was a good hire. I just don't think that's going to happen. I haven't seen anything from Josh McDaniels. He's got, look at the tools he had last year. Besides Derek Carr, who's an above average quarterback, you've got Devontae Adams, who's arguably the best receiver in football. You got a guy by the name of Max Crosby. I mean, I know they were missing some positions there, and I know Waller was hurt at times, and I get all that. But last year was a failure. It just was. And I don't want to hear about how close the Raiders were in these many games, and they had some embarrassing losses. I'm not a Josh McDaniels guy. I don't think he's the right guy for the job. I don't think he'll ever be a good head football coach in the NFL. That's just my opinion.
And I would be on board with that assessment of Josh McDaniels. I'll push back on a couple things you said. First off, Mark Davis is not anywhere near Jerry Jones from a football standpoint. First of all, it's not a fair comparison because Mark Davis is an owner. He's not the general manager. Jerry Jones is the general manager of the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones has a vast football background. Here, let me finish before you jump in. All right. Jerry Jones has a vast football background that Mark Davis does not have. Mark Davis is the owner, has hired a general manager. Jerry Jones is the general manager in Dallas as well as being the owner. So that's number one. Number two, your assessment that Rich Bisaccia should have been retained as the head coach. Look, Rich Bisaccia, I thought, did an excellent job, okay, in that season for the Raiders. Getting that team after all that turmoil to the playoffs, I thought was remarkable. That being said, that was the assessment of a lot of people, a lot of football people and experts out there, is that Rich Bisaccia is not a head coach in this league. And that has been clarified because Rich Bisaccia has not a head coach in this league and has never been a head coach in this league except for that interim stint that he had with the Raiders. So it's not like you can say, well, Mark Davis as an owner was like, oh yeah, Rich Bisaccia, he should have absolutely kept Rich Bisaccia. No, what they can do is they can not retain Rich Bisaccia, and they could have not hired Josh McDaniels. I'm on board with you. They shouldn't have hired Josh McDaniels. I think Josh McDaniels is not an NFL head coach. He's a career coordinator. But they could have gone a different direction than Josh McDaniels and still not retained Rich Bisaccia. I thought that's the way you should have gone. And so, multiple things can be true in that situation. And so, therefore, I mean, when it comes to Mark Davis, I don't think he's a very good owner. When it comes to, I get it. Your father was Al Davis. Fine. All right. We have seen situations all the time in sports where kids end up inheriting the team, right? And they aren't necessarily versed when it comes to football or baseball or hockey or basketball. We get that. All right. It just happens to be the case with Mark Davis. Nice guy. I think the guy's great. I think he does a lot of things in the community that are outstanding. They had some issues when it came to the Raiders as far as some PR stuff and how they handled some cases that we all understand. But and I think he's done a great job with the Las Vegas Aces. But as an NFL owner, I don't think Mark Davis is great in any stretch of the imagination.
Again, I think the Raiders maybe win 5 or 6 games this year, maybe less. I look at their schedule, which is absolutely brutal. I think they could start 1-5. I hope I'm wrong. I'm not one of those people that, oh boy, I hope Brian's right. I hope the Raiders struggle this year. No, I want Josh McDaniels to succeed. I want the Raiders to succeed. By the way, that's any local team. Same thing with UNLV. Same thing with UNLV football, UNLV basketball. I want the Raiders to succeed. I want all local teams to succeed. There's some teams I might root for a little stronger than others, but that's just how I feel about that.
But you're not drinking the Kool-Aid on the Raiders, right? And what you're saying, I think I would concur with. look, you look at this team, they are, and Scott Gully brought it up in the interview. They're probably the worst team in the division. If we're sitting down and we're taking a look at these teams from a personnel standpoint and from an expectation standpoint, the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos are all better teams. So what does that mean? It means that they're probably and Vegas knows all, right, Brian? Vegas knows when it comes to win totals, they know what's going on.
Sure.
All right, for the most part. Is there an outlier here and there where a team surprises you and comes out of nowhere and does something? Yeah, I guess so. But the point is that there's a lot of people that are in the know, that know their pigskin, that know football, that don't expect this Raiders team to win 7 football games this year. And if that's the case, that means Mark Davis and the powers that be with the Raiders and the silver and black have a decision to make when it comes to Josh McDaniels.
Mark Davis will not fire Josh McDaniels.
So you think it's a done deal that Josh McDaniels is definitely getting another year?
No, I didn't say it was a done deal. If Josh McDaniels wins 2 or 3 games this year, then I think he's gone. But I think if he wins 5 or 6, Mark Davis is going to give him one more year. This is his guy. He's going to give him one more year. So we'll wait and see what happens. I would disagree with that. I think if McDaniels only wins another 5 or 6 games this year, I think he deserves to be fired. But I'm just saying I don't think Mark Davis will pull the trigger on that. Let's talk a little Aces basketball, if we may. I don't do a lot of WNBA basketball during the regular season, but this is the circumstance. First of all, congratulations to our head coach for making the Hall of Fame. That's pretty
in our neck of the woods, right, Brian Shapiro?
Yeah,
Springfield, Massachusetts.
Induction
this weekend.
Becky Hammond inducted into the basketball. By the way, rightfully deserved with what she's done for women's basketball and what she did not only in her coaching career, but gosh, what a player she was back in the day.
And she was undrafted, Brian. Undrafted and became a 6-time WNBA All-Star and one of the all-time greats.
Thought it was cool. She was wearing her jacket yesterday, flaunting it, which she deserves to. I thought that was cool. I know you went to the game yesterday. I don't really want to break down the WNBA game yesterday, except for saying that they didn't have a very good first half, but they picked it up in the second half. And A'ja Wilson, as I said when she was a rookie, going into this league, right off the bat, I said one day A'ja Wilson's going to be the best WNBA player in the world. I did say that. And the reason why I said that in week 1 of year 1 when she was a rookie is because of her mid-range game. She's such a versatile player. Yeah, she does have 3-point range, doesn't take a lot of threes. She doesn't have to. She's got a great jump shot, great mid-range game, really good post move. She's not afraid to draw contact, get to the line. She's a very good underrated rebounder and defensive player.
She's a bulldog.
Yeah, and she's having an unbelievable year. Now, with that being said, we do have a very interesting game that you and I will be attending tomorrow against the Liberty. To me, and you tell me if you disagree, the Liberty in a 7-game series is the only team in the WNBA that could even compete with the Aces, and I could see the Liberty winning a couple games. And the reason why I say that is because Breanna Stewart is a defensive nightmare because she's got a great 3-point shot, and she's so big, and their guard plays really, really good. They have a really good starting lineup. Now, I still think the Aces are the better basketball team, but this is this will be an interesting WNBA Finals if, in fact, that does happen. I will also say this, and then I want to hear your perspective. The Aces got embarrassed in New York. This is going to be a payback game. I told you, and I told the Pushing the Limits listeners, because I've been pretty right lately, I said you want to take them against the Dallas Wings the following 2 days later. I said they're going to destroy the Wings. They did.
Yes.
I'm telling you again right now, it's another Shap pick before I even get the C-win pick. I think the Aces win by double digits tomorrow. I think this is a payback game, and I think they are going to play angry because they were embarrassed in New York.
I would concur with that assessment.
Oh, no.
And by the way, full disclosure, I did point this out on another show last night here in town. So I did give this pick. So I'm not just riding your coattails, B-Shap.
I'm in trouble then.
When it comes to this. But I think absolutely there's motivation. And look, we talked to Becky Hammond after the game yesterday. And look, we don't need to get into the details of the game. Yes, they ended up winning the game again by double digits.
Did you bet on the game last night?
I did. I had the Aces yesterday, so I was smiling from ear to ear as I was sitting courtside with the
What's
the media
the spread tomorrow, by the way?
I have to check it out. Actually, I haven't actually bet it yet. But a lot of the discussion obviously turns to Tuesday night, right, Brian? It wasn't even necessarily about a lot of the post-game discussion with Becky Hammon, the coach, was about her induction into the Hall of Fame. Obviously, the speech that was very emotional. She mentioned Greg Popovich and all the other guys that went into the Hall of Fame as well too. A lot of big European flavor there at the Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts, with Dirk Nowitzki and Tony Parker and a lot of guys across the board going into the Hall of Fame. So there was a lot of discussion of that. But then I did pose the question to her, not to toot my own horn, but I guess I'm going to do it right now. I asked her, I said, look, what is going to be the approach? What is the mindset as you head to Tuesday after that? And I used the words embarrassing loss to them in Brooklyn against New York Liberty, and she was straight up about it. I'll be honest, right? Because a lot of times, if media members ask that kind of question with somebody like Becky or other people in the WNBA, sometimes it gets dicey and they want to get combative. And they want to argue with you, or they want to, come at you with, why'd you ask that question? No, Becky owned it, and she said, "Look, we are absolutely looking to right that ship, essentially going into Tuesday night." And she understands that these are the two premier teams in the WNBA. We understand the narrative. We all do understand the narrative that it's a super team. It was the first super team season in the WNBA, and the teams were mentioned, of course, are Vegas and New York. And even Connecticut to some extent, but not really. But it is absolutely imperative for the Aces. They are highly motivated, Brian, is the phrase I'll use, going into this matchup tomorrow night against the second-best team in the WNBA, and a team that absolutely, positively lambasted them by 38 points. Just a matter of over a week ago. So they are motivated.
Depending where you shop, depending on where you shop here in Vegas, whether it be JCPenney or the Westgate Superbook or wherever. Why am I promoting them? I hate that book. Anyway.
Or William Hill.
Yeah, or William Hill. The line is somewhere around 7.5. Yes, I do think the Aces win by double digits. I do. So
mind you, just think about this, right? Just from the average Joe, average Jane standpoint, right? This is a team that is favored by 7.5 that lost by 38 to this team a week ago. So that just tells you,
completely different circumstance.
The viewpoint.
I don't think anybody's going to be partying on a birthday in Las Vegas tonight like allegedly they did in New York the night before. Again, New York had to travel. Aces should be fresh. They didn't have their best game yesterday. They had a pretty good second half, but they didn't have their best game yesterday. I expect they'll be ready to go tomorrow, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Aces not only won the game, but won it handily and say, hey, we're not going to be pushed around. And they're staying in town, right? The Liberty, they also play the Aces on Thursday.
Yes, they're playing them on Thursday. And to your point, you talked about the travel thing, right? So the Liberty are coming off a big win. They just blasted Indiana in Indiana. And by the way, you talked about Breanna Stewart, right? Breanna Stewart, first player ever to have 3 40-point-plus games in the WNBA season.
The former
UConn
dropped
Husky.
42.
Yeah, former UConn Husky dropped 42 on Indiana in that game. So you brought up, you talked about Asia Wilson. You think Asia Wilson's the best player in the WNBA?
I do.
I think that it's Breanna. I have to disagree. It's Breanna Stewart, I think, right now. Now, I love Asia. Don't get me wrong, and she's right there. But I think it's Breanna Stewart. I mean, Breanna Stewart, the woman is. You talked about it. The woman's a monster. She is absolutely tough to deal with. I know I threw this at you late, but
that's okay. We got 2.5 minutes. Do you have 2.5 minutes of music? Okay, I'm just checking. I'm just making sure that's all. Terrible music, by the way. It's horrible. Can't you play some
alternative rock? You think Asia's better than Breanna? Really?
Can't you play like something, I don't know, heavy metal?
You think so,
anyway,
Shap?
I'm just kidding.
You think Asia's better than Breanna right now?
So I think it's really close.
Yeah.
Hard to give a definitive answer, but here's what I will say. Asia Wilson is more consistent. There are games, if you look at Breanna Stewart, listen, she has some incredible numbers, but there are games where she goes 2 for 14 from the field. Very rare. Now, I understand Asia Wilson had that kind of night against the Liberty. But consistently, I think Asia Wilson gives you consistent numbers every night. Breanna Stewart usually does, but boy, she has some really bad shooting nights at times. They're right there. They're right there. I give it to the one that wins the WNBA championship this year, and I know that's not how they do it, but I give it to whoever wins the championship. I think, I'm not going out on a limb here, but I think the Aces are going to win it all this year again. And where was Breanna Stewart last year when it came to the WNBA championship? That's why I give it to Asia Wilson again this year. And I think you want to talk about somebody that's going to be determined tomorrow night, because a lot of people were giving Asia Wilson flack for you want to be the MVP. Look at the performance you had against the New York Liberty. But she also took an elbow to the neck, man, and
she jacked
the jaw.
Yeah.
Let's see how Asia Wilson plays tomorrow when she's healthy. Okay. Can't get pushed around by this team. They got pushed around in New York. But, tomorrow's going to be a lot of fun. I'm actually looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun game, and,
Fun show today, Brian. And, I'm going to be fired up tomorrow because I'm going to get my hot tamales and my Sour Patch Kids rolling down to a little Aces basketball nunchuck.
What are you doing tonight? You're off from work? Are you going to be hanging out at the pool today? What's?
I'm going to be lounging by the pool.
Oh, all right.
Because our guy, Mark Nilsson, he's been doing some serious pool work at
might
the
have to
pad,
stop
bro.
by.
So he's fired up.
After I get my car taken
he loves
care
to
of.
put the backyard action on display. So you might have to stop by.
I might have to check that out with my new shirt. I might have to come by.
All right, bring Pops over with you.
Yes, I will. Well, Chris, thanks for coming.
Good times.
As usual on a Monday. Always fun having Chris here. And Gully, Scott Gulbertson for joining us as well. Tomorrow, my good friend, actor extraordinaire, Miguel Nunez Jr. is going to be joining us. Juana Man himself, talk about the writer's strike, and he's got a lot of strong opinions on that. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a good day.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super hero, that is, because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.